Department responded to a fatal house fire on the 800 block of North 23rd Street. Since that horrible day, the entire city has been mourning. We are devastated by the loss of 12 lives. My thoughts continue to be with the victims' families and loved ones whom city officials met with earlier today to personally update them with the difficult news we're sharing now with you. I want to thank our fire department and first responders for their quick response to this fire and express my gratitude to all involved in this thorough investigation. These public servants have been working around the clock during this difficult time. After a careful and exhaustive investigation by the Fire Marshal's Office with crucial support from the ATF and others, we're here today to explain the preliminary findings of the cause of the fire. This update is not going to be easy to share nor easy to hear. So before I turn it over to Commissioner Teal, we ask that you exercise as much restraint as possible in your reporting. You understand as journalists you have an important job to do, but we respectfully ask that you consider the impact of your reporting on this family for many years to come. We urge you to keep this family in your prayers as they face the many difficult days that lie ahead. Now to walk you through the preliminary findings of the investigation, I'll turn it over to Fire Commissioner and Office of Emergency Management Director, Adam Teal.
Let me start by reiterating something that I think you already know. The almost 3,000 women and men of the Philadelphia Fire Department, our dispatchers, our firefighters, our medics, emergency medical technicians, our fire marshals, and our dedicated administrative staff are 100% committed to protecting lives and property across this city. When we as firefighters take our oath, we are agreeing to willingly risk our lives in service to others. And we saw that commitment demonstrated on that fateful morning almost a week ago. As the members of Engine 34, after a very fast response, arrived on the scene, and even before the balance of the first alarm assignment, the additional 3 engine companies, 2 ladders, 2 battalion chiefs, even before they arrived, you've all seen the video. The members of Engine 34 stretched hose lines in an aggressive interior attack to get into that burning row home as fast as they could and do everything they could to save the lives that were tragically lost on that morning. Now remember, the fire conditions in that building were not what you see on television. There was 0 visibility. High heat, and by high heat, I'm talking about 900 to 1,000 degrees at the ceiling. Toxic smoke filling the entire building, and it's loud in a fire. Rest assured, those firefighters did their level best, as our medics did their best to save those lives. Tragically, we know that despite the best response from our dedicated firefighters, medics, dispatchers, sometimes we are too late. And it appears from the preliminary investigation results on this tragic fire that that is the case. While members of Rescue 1 were able to get barely up to the 3rd floor and rescue one occupant, that occupant perished on the scene. So this is very difficult for us. Our members are still suffering that pain, but nothing can compare to the pain of loss of the families in the neighborhood and the community. I met with the families earlier today to give them this same briefing, and to answer their questions. So I know we are all, again, because of that same television effect, we are all seeking, we hope for simple answers to complex incidents. And this was a complex incident. And we are very fortunate that with our partners from the police department, from ATF, of course, we have the most experienced fire marshals in the business. Last year, they investigated hundreds of fires across the city to determine a cause and origin. And that's what we're presenting today. What we believe at this point the cause and origin of this tragic blaze was. We believe with certainty, so 99 to 100% confidence, that the first item ignited in this blaze was a Christmas tree on January 5th that was in the home. We believe with near certainty, based on the evidence, that the ignition source for that tree was a lighter that was located nearby. That is after an exhaustive investigation looking at every outlet near that tree, doing X-ray analysis of the outlets, looking for any other ignition sources, fireplaces, candles, etc. The investigators literally sifted all of the debris from the unit where the fatalities occurred, and we believe, the investigators believe, that lighter was the reason the tree ignited with near certainty, after ruling out other possibilities. Now that leaves us with, as many of you have seen reported, the words of a 5-year-old child who is essentially one of 2 survivors of this tragedy, and really the sole survivor, the only person who was located, based on the exhaustive interviews conducted by these trained investigators, the only person who was on the 2nd floor, which is where the tree and the lighter were located at the time we believe the blaze ignited. So, we are left with the words of that 5-year-old child, that traumatized 5-year-old child, to help us understand how the lighter and the tree came together with tragic consequences. Because we have disproved any other theories, hypotheses based on the incredible level of expertise that we brought, including ATF's National Response Team and all the other partners who contributed to this investigation. Now, I want to start to close out here by acknowledging all of the incredible partners that we've had through this event during the on-scene response. It's difficult for me to start naming them because I will inevitably miss someone. You've seen them out there. Our second alarmers, the Red Cross, the Salvation Army, Department of Behavioral Health and Intellectual Disability Services, L&I, all of the utility companies, all of our law enforcement partners, including the PHA police, on and on and on. We met the families today at the school that some of you have been to, and the school district has just been amazing in their support. And we know that those youngsters at that school, we talked to them about other opportunities when the time is right to help those youngsters heal. I can tell you, as firefighters, we are not just committed to saving lives through swift, effective, and aggressive response. In fact, we actually we've had 4 working fires already today. We actually have a working fire right now at 13th and Erie. Actually, our firefighters made one rescue this morning at another fire. We've had 50 severe working fires since New Year's Eve, including this one. And the beat goes on for us. In addition to that response, we are committed to preventing fires. And in December, we installed 1,100 smoke alarms in December of 2021. We're continually installing smoke alarms around the city. We taught almost 10,000 youth fire prevention last calendar year. We also have programs for seniors. We have programs for institutional occupancies. We have youth fire center intervention programs that are available. phila.gov/fire. So please help us help you. And remember that fire is everyone's fight. Have smoke alarms. Test your smoke alarms. Close before you doze. Please close the door when you go to sleep at night. There's so much that we all have to do together. As you saw in this incident, our firefighters will be there quickly, and they will do their absolute best and risk their lives. A fire like this that became so intense so quickly and spread that toxic smoke up the stairs to the 3rd floor and claimed those lives. For us, we all wish that fire could have been prevented. So with that, I want to acknowledge that we have Special Agent in Charge Matt Varisco here with us, and he certainly is here for the Q&A, but I want to turn the podium over to PHA President and CEO Kelvin Jeremiah now.
Good afternoon. So you now have heard the origin and cause of the fire. It remains, notwithstanding that, a horrific tragedy. Our hearts ache for those who died and for their survivors. We grieve with them, and we ask all Philadelphians to keep them in your thoughts and prayers. I want to begin by thanking Mayor Kenney for his unwavering support, both for PHA as an organization and for the families we are privileged to serve. I also want to thank Commissioner Thiel and the Philadelphia Fire Department, as well as the ATF, for conducting a timely and very thorough investigation into the origin of the fire that took the lives of 12 of our residents, 12 souls on 23rd Street. At PHA, our highest priority remains making sure that the surviving members' needs are taken care of. As an organization, we are committed to evaluating our policies and procedures and working with our resident leaders to learn what we can do differently to ensure the safety of the families and children we serve. As I have said so many times before, Philadelphia faces enormous challenges with poverty relating to housing and food insecurity. PHA serves the most vulnerable among us, some 80,000 residents with safe and well-maintained homes. Sadly, the needs are overwhelming, and it is an issue that we will examine closely in the weeks and months ahead. We will work with our staff and our policy and government officials to determine what changes we can make to better protect PHA residents. Our hope is that government leaders, especially those on the federal level, will meet this moment and appropriately fund affordable housing and other programs that provide families in poverty with a hand up. And finally, let me just take a moment to thank Philadelphians. The tremendous outpouring of support, of love for this family and for the mission of public housing is enduring. It reminds us that despite the enormity of this loss and the pain that we're feeling, and as we embrace and pour love onto this family, it does remind us that we will get through this, and we'll get through this together. And with that, I'm going to ask Council President Clark if he has some remarks. Thank you.
Excuse me. Good afternoon. Heavy heart. Every day, think about what has happened. You look at New York, you know, you have this parallel track where something similar has happened there, and those hearts up there are heavy. I want to thank the response by everyone, from the mayor, the police department, all of the other agencies that responded, but I really want to thank the fire department, because this morning, 6:30 in the morning, they're standing out there at 22nd and Sedgley, icicles hanging off the building, their faces, their uniforms. I mean, what you guys do is, man, this is like some serious stuff. So I can't thank you all enough for what you do. I know it's been said, it's been written in a number of places, and Kelvin just talked about it. And then we'll get into this whole issue around occupancy, this whole issue around, you know, hardwire, smoke alarms, the type of structure, all of this. But there's one underlying issue, is that the lack of quality, affordable housing. And the fact that at the end of the day, at all new construction, multifamily new construction, we have hardwire, high-rise, we have sprinklers, right? But this is an old city. And in an old city, you have an old infrastructure. We need money to resolve that. We can't just simply say, well, it's old. You know, we can't get to that. Let's keep building new and make sure as we move ahead on all the new construction, it's a good thing. We'll make sure that it's safe and secure. We have to figure out a way to address the old infrastructure in the city of Philadelphia. That should be first and foremost before people start pointing fingers. And, you know, and some of my colleagues, I mean, they are what they are. They're going to come up with every imaginable solution. I believe that our ability to create an environment where you don't have to have 20 or you don't have to have 30 people living in one apartment. I mean, that's just a simple reality. So I want to thank everybody, but as we move ahead, we want to make sure that we come up with not only short-term solutions, because Lord knows we need to be with this family in their time of despair, and it can't be a short-term, it has to be a long-term, but we really need to focus on a longer-term issue as it relates to our ability to make sure that wherever anybody lives, it's a quality house. I talked to one of the administration people today in one of the departments, and they talked about one of the problems that we need to be looking at is rooming houses. We have this thing in the city of Philadelphia where we have all these rooming houses, and in all honesty, nobody knows who's living in there, and it's a disaster waiting to happen. So all of these things that happen as a result, as Carlin referenced, the level of poverty in the city of Philadelphia where people don't have anywhere else to be can create these type of problems. So I just want to thank everybody. We look forward to pushing ahead and making sure that some tragedy like this never happens again in the city of Philadelphia. So thank you all. Thank you for your mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Questions?
Yeah, at the risk of getting overly technical, the devices we're talking about in this occupancy are smoke alarms, the residential smoke alarms that you would have with a sensing device, some type of power, and an alerting device, an audible alerting device. Investigators found 7 smoke alarms in the unit where the occupants perished. 3 of them were in a drawer in the kitchen, inoperable. One was in a bedroom drawer, inoperable. One was on the ceiling of a bedroom, but the battery door was open and there was no battery inside. And there was another one on the floor of another bedroom with no battery inside. There was another smoke alarm in the basement. It's a shared basement between the two units, the A and B unit. That smoke alarm did activate, but it activated late. As you can imagine, this very fast-moving, heavy, toxic, smoke-producing fire started on the second floor. As I think everybody knows, but I don't assume anything, heat and smoke rise. So the heat and smoke rose up through the stairwell up to the third floor in the B unit, and then did what we call, banked down. So that's the explanation for why the basement smoke alarm was late to activate. There's no way we can know if the residents were awake and asleep. It does appear that most of them were located on the third floor in what appear to be bedrooms. And again, smoke inhalation can happen very quickly, which is why we really encourage folks, please, we implore you, have smoke alarms. The other thing, these were the smoke alarms that we installed today are the 10-year lithium-ion battery sealed smoke alarms, where it's not impossible, but it is very difficult to remove the battery, and there's not much you can do with it, versus the 9-volt battery smoke alarms. And I have to say the City of Philadelphia has been a leader in that. The City of Philadelphia, years ago, was one of the first cities in the nation to adopt the requirement that you have those 10-year sealed smoke alarms. The city also has been a leader in residential sprinklers through the years. Now new construction, multifamily occupancies, and some single-family occupancies require residential fire sprinklers as well. Obviously, as you heard the council president say, and we all know, we have a lot of legacy building stock here in Philadelphia, and that really is that's a big challenge for us, is the fact that that's where a lot of our fires, but not all fires, occur.
One quick one, sorry. The fire escape route, like they were all awake. And I understand the stairway acted as it chimney, is what they said, because the smoke was rising up. So what other way could they have gotten out?
Smoke and heat. Smoke and heat both.
They couldn't go down to the two exits that are on the floor, but where were they from?
Well, I think unfortunately, given the speed of the fire spread and the smoke, that's probably a hypothetical, because I'm not sure there was much of an opportunity for evacuation. That said, there were, two of the victims were found sort of at the top of the stairways, both children, and one of those was rescued, and one, perished in that location. It does raise another important point. Another thing we want folks to please do, and this has been a fire prevention week mantra for us for many years. Practice exit drills in the home, or EDITH. So please, we actually did our citywide fire drill. I think we had one camera there. Our citywide fire drill back during Fire Prevention Month, where we actually sort of gamed out a simulated fire in a home and showed the way the family had planned out their escape route, meeting place across the street. Please practice those escape drills, because if you're in a situation, remember, zero visibility. I'm not talking about the heat like from a campfire. We're talking about 900,000 degrees at the ceiling.
Wasn't that where they gone? They did do that escape plan, and fire escape from the first or second floor. There's actually no fire escape, right? And that's because there are fire codes that says they need a fire escape, you don't need a fire escape. Like, what are you supposed to do in that situation?
That is a very difficult situation, which is why, again, operating smoke alarms are so important. Having that early warning, practicing the escape drills, And again, having multiple means of egress where you can. There were windows in those bedrooms, and sometimes people use the windows to escape. In fact, in this fire, one individual did self-evacuate by going out the window. Obviously, that's not ideal, but that is a way that folks sometimes evacuate.
Commissioner, you said that there were multiple fire alarms. Were they all the old-style fire alarms? That's number one. Number two, the child who gave the testimony, was he the one who used the lighter to start the fire?
I'll repeat the smoke alarm question. When you say old style, I'm presuming you mean the 9-volt battery style. We were able to identify that 6 of the 7 smoke alarms were the 9-volt battery style, 5 of which had the batteries removed. 1 was completely destroyed, so we don't know for sure, but we believe that was of the same type. And there was 1 in the basement that operated, but it operated late. I'm going to reiterate what I said before. We are almost certain that the Christmas tree on the 2nd floor was the item that was first ignited. We are near certain that what ignited that fire was a lighter, and how the lighter came into contact with the Christmas tree. You've all seen and heard reported the words of a 5-year-old, and you can decide how to. A 5-year-old. I don't think it was testimony. There were, as you heard, there were interviews, including a lot of interviews were conducted by our law enforcement partners, trained investigators, of many different folks on the block. We're left with the words, the only surviving person who was on the 2nd floor at the time we believe the fire ignited was a 5-year-old. I don't know that we're going to get into detail on the words of a 5-year-old. Again, you've all read this, so. So it's a 5-year-old child. The only survivor of this was a 5-year-old child. And the 5-year-old child, as you've seen reported, certainly said things that the way the investigation proceeded was an attempt to disprove the hypothesis that the way the lighter contacted the tree was in the hands of the 5-year-old child. We could not find anything to disprove that hypothesis. That does not prove it, because we're talking about a 5-year-old child. The classification of the fire from the very technical perspective of ATF and our fire marshals and the way that we classify fires according to National Fire Protection Association standards, we would classify this fire as what we call incendiary, which means we don't believe that it occurred accidentally. We believe there was some type of human intervention to bring the ignition source to the first item ignited. And again, you've heard me say and that's based on without certainty, but less certain, the less certain words of a traumatized 5-year-old. We don't have any hypothesis. We don't have anything really to the contrary. So what we know for sure is the tree. The next thing we know, pretty sure, near certainty, is the lighter. And again, we're left with the words of this 5-year-old.
And this is a preliminary, essentially, announcement. There will be a final report, eventually.
There will be a final report, as is produced on hundreds of other fires every year in the city of Philadelphia. Let me finish the incendiary versus accidental. Different stakeholders, different folks in this have different classification systems for incendiary versus accidental. So you may see other agencies that are involved in this, because of the way they consider the facts and the level of certainty of the fact pattern, you might see other agencies classify it as accidental. So again, that's what makes this, as I said, I certainly understand the desire for simple, clear-cut answers. This is not a simple, clear-cut incident or investigation. This is not CSI, folks. We have done our best with what's available. There is always uncertainty in science.
So on the second question first, there are no limits. The folks who were on the list, as I had indicated last week, I believe, in apartment in the Unit B, there were 14 authorized residents. And as I've said before, there is nothing in our regulations, nothing in HUD policies and procedures that preclude families who are intact, as this one was. You have in this present incident a mother who had raised her 3 daughters and who we moved in 2011 because the family had grown. And between 2013 and the fire, the family had grown significantly. There is nothing in policy that preclude them from continuing to reside in that home as an intergenerational family, something that resonates, frankly, in many black and brown communities, and certainly not unique to Philadelphia. So when we refer to the number of people that PHA serves, the number of families that we serve, we hasten to say that it's 80,000 authorized residents. Our families are not unlike yours and mine. Our PHA families are not unlike yours and mine. They have family and friends that comes to visit. An uncle might come for a weekend and stay a month. We don't know the full extent to which there are additional unauthorized residents, meaning that there are residents not known to PHA and who are not on the lease.
And then also, with PHA, are you maybe considering after this horrible tragedy to look and see if there were new fire escape plans for families that may be in the same situation that may be in those types of housing units? Are you going to look at that? Is there going to be maybe an independent investigation to look at what?
So, as I mentioned, I think, we have a responsibility to review this incident and to carefully explore all options with regard to how we can continue to ensure the safety of our residents. And so that's what we will do. We are already well underway in reviewing this incident. But let me tell you as well that this is not, to the question that you're raising, this is not cost neutral. And as I've said, it requires the alignment of resources on the federal, state, and city levels. It requires funding. This incident highlights the fundamental truth that there is, in fact, an affordable housing crisis in this city. We don't get to build these units for free. The labor that we use to build isn't free. And so it's why you've heard me say time and time again that we're advocating heavily for additional resources, such as what is included in Build Back Better, which would have brought in hundreds of millions, upwards of $1 billion to the city that would go directly to addressing the aging housing stock that we have. But I, for one, cannot do it alone, and it does require real partnership, and it does require meaningful investment on the federal level especially. So we already have implemented that, and that has been the case. We're no longer using the 10 volts batteries. What we're using are the tamper-proof 10-year lithium battery that the commissioner mentioned.
Commissioner, has the initial estimate of how many people were in each apartment at this time changed? In other words, how many people escaped from each unit?
Yes, I think depending on when you start with initial, I want to acknowledge First Deputy Commissioner Craig Murphy, Executive Chief Derek Bomer, Deputy Commissioner Jeff Thompson. Of course, I want to acknowledge Commissioner Outlaw and all of the PPD folks who were there on scene with us initially and are always there arm in arm with us. So as you heard First Deputy Commissioner Murphy say, all of the things that he has said up until now, and frankly, even now, some of this information is still preliminary, are all subject to change. What we understand now from the investigation is there were, and Murph, help me out here, I think we believe at the time of the fire, there were 14 occupants in the B unit, which is second and third floor, and the fatalities were all in the B unit. And there were 6 occupants of the A unit. 8 occupants of the A unit, which is first and second floor. Yes, there's a part of the A unit is on the second floor, and the kind of first floor of the B unit is on the second floor going up to the third. Second floor of the A unit is in the back of the second floor with a stair up from the first floor. So that's, I guess the revision is 14 in the B unit, which is where the fatalities, 12 fatalities were located, the 12 people who perished were located, and 8 in the A unit. And I also, we met with the folks from the A unit today too, and they had closed before they dozed, thankfully. And I'm just so glad this was, I'm almost speechless, but yes, I guess we've revised since the first. No, this was in a totally different unit. So this, the issue with the fire dynamics, and again, we're going to continue to look at ways to model this, and hopefully at some point help you visualize it. But I hope, because we put it out every year, Kathy Matheson, our communications director, constantly. We've done press conferences. We put out information about Christmas trees over and over. I was there sawing a Christmas tree about a month ago. And please, because I don't think I've said this yet, please, it's January, whatever. Get rid of the tree if it's in your house. And next year, remember this. Remember this. Because everybody's sort of, and some of the camera folks are here nodding their heads because they're out there when we're doing these media events. And I see everybody's eyes roll when I say, oh, be careful with your live tree, fresh cut, keep it watered. Well, this is why. Or pick a thing. So please, please get rid of those trees. Have smoke alarms, check the smoke alarms, have exit drills, and close before you doze. The fire behavior issue here is the open stairway, which again, very common. Most of us in our single-family homes, even duplexes, have open staircases. That's really what quickly spreads the fire and heat. Watch that Christmas tree video. We put it up every year. That Christmas tree just goes like that. But remember, one of the issues with that is you look at the Christmas tree in isolation, it burns up, boom, it's over. In a real house, the Christmas tree is surrounded with furnishings that are combustible, other items in the house that are combustible. So instead of that tree just quickly flaring up, burning, and that's it, that radiant heat, the convective heat also moves through that space and quickly ignites the other items. One more point. Please call 911 if you see a fire, you have any inkling that there's a fire. Remember, we don't have any way to know that a fire is occurring in your home. Even if you have working residential smoke alarms, unless somebody calls us to say they hear it going off or they're getting out of the house, we don't know that. We don't know that. So please, if you are going down a street and 30 some odd neighbors did in this incident, call 911. Don't text it, don't tweet it, don't go on an app. Call 911. Please do not assume that anybody else called, because we need, as you can see in this tragic incident, every second counts in a fire. And thank God for our firefighters and their incredible work and speed in getting there, and the actions they took to do their absolute best to mitigate this tragedy. Oh, I can't answer the question about in whose care the 5-year-old is.
And how long did it take for that fire to get for what was from Christmas Street kind of what you saw?
I think our initial, and we're going to try to do some modeling, this is preliminary, but this was an incredibly rapid fire spread because of the Christmas tree and the furnishings. So, we think that really the environment on that third floor, within about 90 seconds from ignition, 90 seconds to 3 minutes from ignition, was untenable and deadly.
And my last question, sorry for the non-topic. I don't know who can answer this, but even if those fire alarms went off, what would have been the escape plan? What would they have done? I know you covered on this, but in that situation, you have the chimney.
Again, it's,
What would you do if all those fire alarms were 12 people, you got to get them out?
I think it's with the speed of that fire and the time of day, I'm just not sure there was a chance for that. I will say that, when I had younger children and lived in a 3-story home, again, this is where people roll their eyes. I actually went and got one of those ladder things that you throw out the window, and people kind of laugh. But, this was a really fast-moving and difficult fire.
Where on the second floor was the tree located?
It was in one of the corners. So we have a way that we would describe that corner that won't make any sense to you all. So I'm trying to think of the compass directions. I guess it would have been in the southwest corner, maybe. Southwest corner of in the living room. That's where people put their trees, in the corner of the living room. In the front.
In the front. I just didn't know how close it was to the stairwell.
It's actually it's on the other side of the room from the stairwell, which again I think illustrates the speed and the power, and I use that in the true physical sense, the power that these fires have to spread rapidly.
You said in the last press conference that DHA was sued over occupancy limits, and that's why there are no occupancy limits. Can you just say that again? I understand. You said, I believe, last week the city was sued, and that's why it does no longer have occupancy limits. Can you say what you referred to?
Yeah, so in conversations with, and I'm not going to say who it was, individuals in the government who had institutional knowledge of this whole history about occupancy, they said there were a significant number of challenges because of the cultural diversity of the city, the intergenerational nature of the city, so the city no longer tried to enforce an occupancy issue. That's what I was told.
When that dates back to?
I don't have the specifics. If you want me to get the specifics of the particular times, but Mary, yeah.
I understand the concern about occupancy and the like, but, I'm 63 years old. When I was a kid, Irish families had intergenerational, lots of people living in the houses, uncles, aunts. I know that immigrant families today have lots of intergenerational people living. And again, it's cold, and people are outdoors, as I said at the press conference, outside the property. People are outdoors, and they're struggling, and relatives take people in. That's what relatives do. I don't think there should be any judgment made about that situation, because I grew up a neighbor like that.
We're at time for everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Commissioner, do you want to answer?
Months. Independent investigation. There's not going to be an independent fire investigation because we have ATF and the fire department and PPD there's nobody really to even do that.
I mean, to say, like, see if there was any neglect or family.
First, I trust our fire department, and I trust our ATF partners, and they would steer us wrong. If they saw something wrong, they would be in the report. So,
Like, just to make sure that everything was done right with L&I and safety.
but I don't know if L&I, does L&I inspect PHA?
Chris,
Yep.
we'll follow up.
Yeah, we don't like,
Thank you for joining us, guys. Thank you.